So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Is this a fever dream, or did the Browns actually trade up and draft a linebacker? I'm curious. But in all seriousness, Jeremiah Wusu-Koromoa, Anthony Schwartz, excited to add both guys to the roster. I think probably the theme of day two of the draft with these two players really is speed. Jeremiah, versatile defensive player, can produce from multiple alignments. High motor, great range, quick processor, and he's a perfect schematic fit for us at the linebacker position. And with Anthony, I think everybody on here knows that he has world-class Olympic speed. He was a player who really impressed us throughout the spring process. Very, very smart, very quick study. I think his best football is in front of him, but he has all the characteristics that we desire. For a player to be a real, primary vertical presence in our offense. So we're excited to add both those guys to the team. And I guess with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you very much, AB. Tom Withers, you have our first one.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, AB. Belated congratulations on the baby.
Thanks, Tom.
We heard there was a lot of pacing going on, and you're no longer an expectant father. So who was doing all the pacing as Jeremiah dropped down the board?
I think we probably had maybe a building of 30 people all pacing together. We certainly didn't expect him to be there when he was, but we're fortunate that he was, and think he's gonna add something to our team.
He said last year, just watching you guys, he saw how he fits into the scheme so well, just the way Joe likes to play the game. Was that an immediate attraction to you guys, just knowing his skill set and that pretty obvious connection right there?
Yeah, it was. We really do see him as really the classic fit in this defense at will linebacker because of his range, speed, and coverage ability. I think the other thing with Jeremiah is his versatility as well. They really walked him out as a nickel, a dime, played him at will, played him at Mike. And so that allows us to get creative. When we get into some of our different personnel packages, it makes us very difficult for the offense to identify the front.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Jeff Shadell, you're up.
Hey, Andrew, I hope you take this question the way it is intended. You're getting a lot of praise for everything you've been doing in this offseason, and especially this draft. How do you avoid letting that go to your head and still be the same kind of general manager you have been that made you this successful?
Well, I guess to be quite honest, Jeff, the praise really doesn't mean a whole lot because nothing's happened on the field. I like that there's a ton of excitement around the team, and the bulk of the credit goes to our players from last year, our coaching staff, for bringing it all together as a team. But the reality of it is we've added players and made roster decisions that we think give us the best chance of having a very successful season. But I think I've been in the NFL enough years to know that all that does is just give you a chance. Every year is really unique and different. And sometimes the best laid plans don't come to fruition, but we're optimistic. We like the guys that we've added. But really it doesn't amount to anything at this point.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll go to Daryl Ryder.
Hey, Andrew. I'm just curious, did you have any intel as to why Jeremiah fell as far as he did? Obviously you benefit from that, but this was a guy, Paul did share with us that you were considering drafting at 26. So I'm just kind of curious how you were the beneficiary of such fortune.
Yeah, I guess really a couple things. One, I guess I'll preface it by saying, I'm not in the other 31 draft rooms or, I have no idea how the other teams had Jeremiah stacked on their board. I do think Jeremiah is a little unique in the manner in which he produces. So he's not necessarily going to be everybody's flavor or fit, right? You are talking about a player who's a little bit undersized for a classic, linebacker. You're talking about a guy who was used in a variety of roles at Notre Dame, and that's not necessarily going to be the right fit or maybe quite as highly valued of a skill set depending on the defensive system. So all I can say is for us, in Joe's scheme, everything that he does well marries with what we want our linebackers to do in this defense. So we're optimistic that he can come in and he can produce as long as he's Cleveland Brown and really play comfortably in the manner that allowed him to be so effective at Notre Dame.
And then by adding Anthony to an already crowded receiver room, you brought all those guys back from last year. And I realized going into the draft, you had mentioned to us that you take a big picture view to this thing. And you're not trying to fill a specific hole. And if guys there, you're going to take them. But just where does he fit in immediately? Because I imagine someone that fast and that talented, you want to find some creative way to have him involved right away, right?
Yeah, so I guess, in terms of the immediate role, that's something that has to be earned. That's to be earned by, really all of our rookies and all of our additions this offseason. And that's something that is also decided by, Kev and AVP and CEO. What I can tell you is what attracted us to Anthony is his ability to stretch the field. I think that's something that, we felt coming out of last year, especially with Odell's injury, is a dimension that wasn't quite as strong as when Odell was healthy throughout the year. So Anthony certainly gives us, multiple guys with the ability to really stretch the field vertically. But really the other thing is, Anthony is, I think actually still very early on his really development curve as a player. He's incredibly smart, really, really smart from a football standpoint. Can play outside, can play inside. And again, he has the speed that can stretch defenses.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Gerald. Scott Petrick, we'll go to you.
Hey, Andrew, you joked about trading up, so I got a couple questions about that. What does it take, I guess, to tip the scales for you to do that? And do you feel like it is a unique thing for you guys to do that, first of all?
Really, each situation is case by case. That depends on who's on the board, what position, and ultimately if we think there's value in the actual trade compensation. We certainly have moved back more often than we moved up. And I think it's probably safe to say that will hold over the course of, the long term. But that being said, I am being honest with you guys when I say that we're flexible moving up or down the board if the situation is appropriate.
And then yesterday we asked you about staying at 26 instead of going to try to get Greg. So I'm just curious how different it was yesterday versus today is, hey, yeah, we need to go get Jeremiah.
Yeah, I mean, just based on how we viewed Jeremiah as a prospect and as a fit within our defense, we thought if there was a player that we could secure for pricing that we could stomach and feel good about, that was really in our best interest. So really, it was just as simple as that.
Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Nate Ulrich, you're next.
Going back to that joke again, which I appreciate, but just how special of a linebacker, how good of a fit did he need to be for you guys to kind of, be bold and go up and get him? I mean, is he just a special case because you're saying about his versatility and fit?
I guess maybe I would push back on the notion that, that we don't value linebackers. I mean, it's an important position on the field, and if there are good players, like the first order of business to acquire good players. In Jeremiah's case, we did think the fit was really good schematically, but we just thought the overall player, was a high quality prospect. Whether or not, I kind of hesitate to use the word special, Nate, just because, again, we've got to see how it all plays out. We certainly like him as a player and think he has tremendous upside and tremendous ability to produce within the system. But at the same time, we're also, measured and realistic with, our expectations of him.
And I asked Paul because I'd seen some, chatter online about medicals with him. And Paul said that he didn't run in his pro day, but he did other things because he's a little dinged up. Was that a factor, you think, in him, being available as late as he was? And is there any kind of hang up on your end that made you, contemplate whether you know, it was going to be worth the move that you ultimately made.
You know, I can't begin to speculate in terms of what, you know, made him, I guess, allegedly drop. But I can say that we were very comfortable with him from a medical standpoint.
Thank you, Nate. Tony Grossi, you're up.
Hey, Andrew, at what point in last season did the thought first cross your mind that, man, we need defensive help here? I mean, what was your whole offseason, except for Schwartz, has been devoted to defense. And I'm wondering, it didn't just strike you after the Kansas City game, but when did you realize that this was going to be an offseason dedicated to defense?
You know, I think, Tony, quite honestly, that's something that we really looked at, you know, really, I guess, or you call it a year and a half ago. You know, we knew that going into the 2020 season, our primary focus would be on the offensive side of the ball and first and foremost, supporting the quarterback, making sure the quarterback had the support that he needed to be as effective as possible. And the reality is that any given offseason, you're only able to do a certain level of investment given the resources that are at your disposal, whether it's picks, whether it's cap space, whether it's cash that you're allowed to spend. You know, we felt good about that unit. We felt good that we were able to keep a large part of it intact. You know, so naturally, right, this offseason has had a little bit more of or I guess much more of a defensive lean. You know, because we did realize that that's not an area that had you know, been as heavily invested over the past couple off seasons. Now, that being said, I wouldn't say that there was any type of aha moment. You know, we felt like there were a number of positions coming out of last year that we could or we would need to add you know, talent and competition. But I guess really maybe the short answer to your question is, you know, this you know, roster construction was largely done with a 2-year plan in mind.
And I don't know if you've tried yet, but are you finding it a little more difficult to roll picks into next year? It seems like everyone wants more picks next year because this was kind of a weird year to, you know, project the draft. Will you try tomorrow to do that a little bit?
We could. I mean, I don't know that it's any more different than. I guess I push back on the notion that it's any more difficult than in previous seasons. I think if you're thinking about relative to last year for us, the reality of generating future draft capital is more difficult when you're picking lower in the round than when you're picking higher in the round, just because, again, your picks are less valuable than when you're picking in the top 10. But again, that doesn't prevent us from you know, adding picks in 2022 and 2023, but just the right situation has to arise.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tony. We're going to try to get in 3 more. Marla, Mary Kay, Doug. Marla, you're up.
Yeah, Andrew, just Jeremiah said one of his idols was Ed Reed. I just wondered if you could, you know, how do you see him as a game changer? You know, he had a lot of forced fumbles. I mean, do you think that's the kind of player he can be?
I guess I would hesitate to call any rookie a game changer. They've really, I mean, all these guys are going to have a long way to go before they become, you know, productive pros. You know, Jeremiah, for us, we love his motor, we love his speed, we love his tenacity. You know, he's producing a variety of ways at Notre Dame, and we view him as a classic role in our defense.
And blame Paul because he said those guys were up there on the whiteboard as soon as you picked him, drawing them scenarios. Were they drawing up a way to use them for against Lamar Jackson?
That's something that you'll have to ask Kevin and Joe and Tar. But you know, one of the many strengths that Jeremiah has is his versatility. And I feel fortunate that we have a pretty creative defensive staff that can use him in a variety of roles to hopefully be productive.
Thank you, Marla. Mary Kay Cabot, you're up.
Yes, Andrew, in completely overhauling this defense, it really seems that you've really also sort of changed the personality of the defense. Every single one of these guys that we've talked to seems like, you know, this guy could be the green dot guy. And then the next guy you talk to feels like he could be the green dot guy. And then they're all talking to each other and building each other up. And so I guess I'm just asking, you know, what do you have building here just in terms of the chemistry of your new defense?
Yeah, our hope is really, and I think we talked about this maybe a year and a half ago that our focus is not just on collecting talent, but building a team. And I think that starts with the type of people that you bring into the organization. We talk about smart, tough, accountable, and we want guys to embody those characteristics. And that doesn't mean that, look, that every guy's perfect or that every guy hasn't, had challenges in their past, but we want guys who are team-oriented, passionate about ball, again, smart, tough, and accountable.
And just the way that Jeremiah handled falling out of the first round and being a little uncertain about where he was going to go. And I don't know if you got an opportunity to hear or read his answer about that yet, but I would guess that it would be, something that you would expect from one of these kind of guys. He just really handled it in a really cool kind of a way.
I did not hear the response, but it does not surprise me that he handled it, well and professionally. That's consistent with what we've learned about him throughout the draft process.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Kay. And we'll close with AB, Doug Lesmerises.
Hey, Andrew, I hope I can ask this the right way so you know what I'm trying to say. In your time here, 2 off seasons, and now in the middle of your second draft, whether it's Jack Conklin in free agency or Jedrick Wills and Grant Delpit in the draft, whether it's John Johnson in free agency or what you've done in this draft so far, it feels like you, even from the outside, we could sort of see the plan. Oh, there might be an opening here. And then you guys execute a plan. I know you have to plan, and I know you have to react in the moment, and you have to have a million contingencies. But how much have you been able to sort of do what you plan to do in building this team? I know nothing's perfect, but have you pretty often been able to do what you hoped weeks ahead, how it would go down?
I think that's fair to say, Doug, and no plan gets executed to perfection, as you alluded to. But it's an incredible credit to our scouts, our coaches, our research and strategy analysts, our player development staff, our contract management team, because it really does take a team effort and a collaborative effort for us to execute on any transaction, let alone the volume of transactions that we've done over the past two off seasons. So, we're excited. I think the team is coming together in, the shared vision that we all had. But to be quite honest, we still have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of time before we get to August in training camp and then September till we're playing games. So, we're pleased with where we are at this point, but it's by no means a destination.